Hello, it's Sun and Sagittarius. Welcome to New Moon News number 6 from Tuesday, May 15th to Wednesday, June 13th. This is a really exciting lunar cycle for you in particular because we have a lot of Gemini energy going on. Now, Gemini and Sagittarius are partner signs. We're more similar than not. I'm a Gemini with Mercury in Gemini. And all the partner placements are the two signs that are opposite each other on the zodiacal wheel. So here we have, for example, Capricorn and Cancer. And then we have, there we go, Gemini and Sagittarius. It's hard to see because I'm blocking it, and etc. We have 6 pairs of 2 different energies per pair, and that makes up the zodiacal wheel. So when an energy is in your partner placement, it means that it's, astronomically speaking, it's in the area of space exactly opposite your natal energies. What this means for us astrologically is it's reaching a culmination of some point. So the transiting Sun goes into Gemini Sunday, May 20th, Mercury goes into Gemini Tuesday, May 29th, and Venus is already in Gemini at the very beginning of this lunar cycle. It goes into Cancer very shortly thereafter. So what all of this means, we'll go piece by piece, but what this means basically is, especially for Sun and Mercury, Venus has already been doing this, but Sun and Mercury are about to reach a culmination point. So the seeds that you planted when Sun and Mercury were conjunct your natal Sun, back in late November, December of 2017, all those seeds were planted that are now bringing a sense of culmination. Some of this culmination might be a little bit underwhelming. You might feel frustrated, like, man, I really wanted to be able to achieve more during this time. Perhaps during Capricorn season, or Aquarius season, or Pisces season, or Aries, or this current Taurus season. Perhaps there was one of those seasons or multiple of these seasons where something didn't quite follow through. Perhaps you set this grand vision for yourself back in Sagittarius Sun during basically with your birthday, but that during that whole birth season, that whole month, this last 2017, perhaps it was hard to find follow-through. It was hard. You had this wonderful vision, this wonderful inspiration, but then it was like, the Capricorn season, I got a little bit down on myself. I didn't really believe in myself, and then I didn't follow through on the practical work. Well, regardless of whether this particular season upcoming of Sun and Gemini is really positive or it's underwhelming, this is a wonderful time to be able to pull it out at the last second. And especially as a Sagittarius, you're able to do that wonderfully, because as opposed to, say, a Taurus person, or rather a Scorpio person, who during this last month was experiencing their full Sun, when the Sun is opposite their natal Sun, just like with the full moon, the Sun and the moon are opposite each other, and so there's this intense attraction, intense chemistry, intense energy. Well, with their full Sun, for example, a Scorpio would be experiencing this last month a little bit more, they're more fixed, they're a fixed sign, they're more stubborn in a lot of ways, and so it's difficult for them to be able to change things at the last second, because it's just, they're not as flexible, they're not as versatile, they're not as quick to change. And so that's one of the beautiful gifts of being a Sagittarius, and again, one of the challenges as well. Just like us Geminis, we're very scattered, but one of the gifts is you're able to figure things out and change it all at the last minute. So during this next month, we have a lot going on for you. We have the full Sun, where the transiting Sun is opposite your natal Sun, your half birthday, if you will, 6 months after your birthday. And when everything comes together, or stuff isn't quite coming together, and you push it out the last second, you just go for it. So that's something to keep in mind, is to not lose hope. If things aren't quite coming together, especially in the first 9 days of the Sun in Gemini transit, when Mercury will still be in Taurus, don't lose hope. Don't feel like, man, I missed my chance, I'm going to have to wait until next year, maybe I won't even get a chance. No, don't be so negative, okay? And it is wise to notice this. It is wise to see if things aren't quite coming together, to look back at the last 6 months and ask yourself, okay, what do I need to work on to be able to make sure that everything comes together next year? For example, perhaps there's something that happens every year during Aquarius season that makes me a little bit detached from my emotions in a way that is a little bit too much, perhaps. Maybe this next year I can be able to learn how to be detached, as we all are during Aquarius season, be logical and intellectual, without actually losing my spark of inspiration, my spark of enthusiasm that makes you, a Sagittarius, so wonderfully warm and exuberant and full of life meaning and adventure and zeal and passion. So this is a good time to look at, well, really, even if things are going really well for you, or you feel like the next month things are going to go really well for you, it's a great time to look back at this last 6 months and go, Okay, what worked? What did I do differently this time? Perhaps this time during Capricorn season, I didn't get depressed and I stayed focused and I worked hard. Perhaps during Pisces season, I let go of trying to control things and trying to let ego control things and just kind of floated with the stream instead. Perhaps with Aries season, I reignited my fire and went for it in a way that before I was maybe a little bit slow to get to because I was still kind of drifting from the Pisces season. And perhaps for this Taurus season that we just, well, are now going through and went through during, if you're looking back during the Sun and Gemini transit coming up, perhaps I stayed focused, I just was single-minded, and I got stuff done. This is a really wonderful time to look back in general. But most importantly, this is a time to enjoy the present. This is a really great time where you're going to be able to achieve accomplishments that weren't possible, that really aren't possible any other time of the year. But again, it's important to keep note that this is all building on what the last 6 months has given you. And it's going to resolve over the next 6 months. Now, the next 6 months are still going to be a time of progress and culmination, but it's not quite as just yes as a time of Sun and Gemini transit. So this is a really fun time. If it's not quite so fun, or you think it's not going to be quite so fun in the near future, this is a time of reflection and then changing as much as possible to make it as great as possible. And of course, keeping in mind this for next year, so when this next cycle happens, that's the beautiful thing about all these transits. There's endless cycles, until the sun explodes and we all, pass on, which is billions of years from now or something like that. So, all of these cycles are at our disposal. That being said, we don't want to waste them. We do want to make the most of them. So there's no need to freak out and be like, but it is good to keep in mind that this is a beautiful opportunity for you, and it's important to make the most of it, especially since Mercury goes into Gemini Tuesday, May 29th, and on a full moon at that. So a quick note, that full moon is going to be very intense for you. It's going to be very intense for everybody, it always is, but for you especially, because the sun will be in Gemini, the moon will be in Sagittarius, so conjunct your sun or near your sun anywhere. Anyways, maybe conjunct or near any other Sagittarius energy you have, maybe Mercury, maybe Venus, maybe there's another Sagittarius placement you have. And Mercury will have just gone into Gemini, so you're going to feel these jolts of electricity, of energy, of communication, and need to be able to understand people, to understand ideas, to be able to understand places, to be able to understand everything. I have Mercury in Gemini natally. It's really fun. It's really annoying in some ways. It requires a lot of focus to be able to make sure I don't get too scattered and that I'm able to continue to grow doing what I love to do and be curious about, but without losing focus on the practical details of life, on the emotional details of life. So this is something that's really wise to keep in mind, because especially as a Sagittarius, there's going to be this tendency to, especially with Mercury and Gemini, from the 29th and on the full moon at that onwards, but especially on that, the 29th, even the 30th, 31st, and the first couple days of June, there's going to be a tendency to speak before thinking. There's going to be a tendency to just this is my opinion. And when it really could have, a higher self manifestation of yourself in that moment would have gone, maybe I'm noticing some things. That's something that's really fun about Mercury Gemini, is we notice things very, very quickly and very succinctly. So we're able to see, this person really wants to talk. Okay, I'm going to let them talk because I want to listen, because then I can learn things. Instead of feeling this Mercury Gemini energy right away, feeling the full moon and going, opinion, analysis. Take it from me. This energy does talk a lot, as you well know, seeing my videos, I'm sure. But it's just as important to listen. And I find that the ability of Mercury Gemini to listen is a great gift too, and one that a lot of people don't necessarily know or notice right away with Mercury and Gemini, unless they're actually in a conversation with a mature Mercury Gemini who's able to listen, to really take in things and consider them, and also consider what the Mercury and Gemini person may not know, because that's the tendency of this energy too, is to think it knows everything. Okay, I've had to learn the hard way that I certainly fucking do not, and I never will, and that's a beautiful thing. None of us ever will, and that's a beautiful thing, because that keeps us open to learning and exploration in the universe and other people's perspectives. Every single person can offer us something in the terms of insight, wisdom, knowledge. We just have to be open to it. That's really the key. We just have to learn how to not talk so much, or maybe ask certain questions to get other people to blossom and open up. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you too. For this, again, this is going to be your even if you don't have Mercury Sagittarius, and that's not your full Mercury, if you will, if you just as a Sagittarius sun sign, this Mercury is going to be opposite your sun. You're going to be able to communicate with other people a lot more readily. You're going to have wonderful, fascinating conversations with other people. However, it's up to you, as with every transit, about where you want these conversations to go. If you want them to be full of ego and argument and I believe this, you should believe this as well, or shit like that. Very much low-level Sag of just like, this is my belief. My ego is tied up with my belief. Well, then you're not going to get a lot of stimulating conversations. You're not going to give out information. You're going to chase away people who are like, oh, that person's really bigoted, or wow, that person really thinks they know everything. I'm not interested in giving them the information I have to offer them, and that's really sad. That's a wasted opportunity. So stay open, stay open-minded, and see what the world has to offer you, and see what you can learn, and also what you can teach. This is a wonderful time to be able to teach other people, to give information, and to create nice, strong social networks, especially since Venus is coming off of a transit in Gemini. So even though Mercury and Sun in Gemini transits aren't overlapping with the Venus and Gemini transits, you have had this last lunar cycle and the first 4 days of this lunar cycle to be able to meet a lot of different people, to stretch out your social networks and to solidify those that you find really interesting, and to get new information. And this Sun and this Mercury energy is now saying, okay, with the Sun energy from Sunday, May 20th onwards, throughout this lunar cycle, it's going to be like, let's do stuff with this. Let's create ideas. Let's do something with the ideas. And let's broaden our sense of self. Let's learn more about ourselves and about each other. Then that Mercury and Gemini energy is going to say, and this is the way to do it. Let's communicate. And again, this is going to be from Tuesday, May 29th onwards. So from May 29th, that's when we have Sun and Mercury in Gemini. It's good to keep that in mind. So if things aren't quite moving as fast as you want them to be, because Mercury is in Taurus from the 20th to the 29th, well, I mean, before then, but because we're talking about the Sun and Gemini transit as well, for the first 9 days of the Sun and Gemini transit, Mercury will be in Taurus. So if it's not quite moving quite as quickly as you'd like, that's a blessing in a lot of ways, because with so much Gemini energy, it can move way too quickly, especially with Sagittarius energy. It can just like spark off fireworks, and then it's gone. It's like, wait a second, hold on, that was supposed to last a little bit longer than that. Let's enjoy it for more than just a moment. But also, it is good to keep in mind when May 29th comes around, that Mercury and Gemini transit comes around, it's going to be a wonderful rocket launcher. So aim your rocket well. Put the fuel in, make it all nice and practical, and go for it when the time does come. It's going to be very exciting. Otherwise, just some little notes. Mars in Capricorn is going to Mars in Aquarius Wednesday, May 16th, and this is going to be really wonderful because it's going to spend about 5 months in Aquarius all year long. That's really helpful for you, because Mars in Aquarius is a sextile energy. It's an energy that is air, and you're fire as a sun sign. And so those energies go together really nicely. You just have to apply it. You just have to work and do the actual effort to put it together. But it's not really hard work. It's not like an opposition or a square energy. Opposition. It's just in this particular case, and we'll cover this more as the lunar cycles continue onward and Mars in Aquarius continues, but for this next lunar cycle, I'm finding the biggest thing is just be open to learning, be open to growing, advancing your understanding of self, of your understanding about the universe in general, and seek expert guidance, and you will make huge leaps forward in understanding. And when it comes to your time to teach as well. We all are perpetual students and perpetual teachers in this universe. So teach and learn, but mainly I feel this is going to be more so a time of learning, of letting other people give you information, and then you can go forward in your life with that. So that's really fun, really interesting. The biggest thing is just being open to it, seeing who's out there and opening yourself up to the universe. It can be a little bit challenging after May 19th when Venus goes into Cancer, because the entire world's going to be a little bit more about like family and those who are familiar, and not quite be so open and talking to strangers about random stuff. But ultimately, with that Mars in Aquarius and you being a Sagittarius, you are going to be able to get past those barriers if you just stay calm, stay patient, and seek to understand where other people are coming from. Not only mentally, their ideas they're offering you with all this air energy, but also emotionally too. Just be considerate in that regard and not jump the gun too quickly. Your enthusiasm is a beautiful thing, but not everybody can handle such enthusiasm so readily. The last thing is Jupiter is in Scorpio retrograde, and it will be until November 8th when it goes into Sagittarius. Beautiful transit we're looking forward to. It won't be retrograde all that time, obviously. I think it's until like August or so. But being that this lunar cycle, Jupiter will be retrograde the entire time, this is yet again another lunar cycle to go inwards, to understand your deepest sense of self, your deepest core values, your deepest sense of who you are, what your life purpose is, what your powers are here on Earth, and to use them for good, to bring them out and to bring prosperity to yourself and others. So resist the urge to get mired in ego. Enjoy your ego, but resist the urge to get too caught up in ego, and seek to be generous with your powers, to give to the world in a very fair exchange of energy, and good things will come to you. And also, be willing to go into the greatest depths of your psychology. I know it can be difficult if you don't necessarily have a lot of Scorpio energy, but it is essential that we face our darkest depths to be able to reach our highest light and to be able to soar to our highest heights. Infinite love to you, my friend. Namaste.